Flying the CH-750 Cruzer. This is a variation of the 700 series, I'm calling it, that had the 701 still in production, the 750, which is the models of the airplane that are STOL, that is short takeoff and landing. The Cruzer is not that. It uses a more conventional wing that allows it to fly a little faster, hence the name Cruzer. On purpose, a STOL aircraft is not meant to be a particularly fast airplane. It's meant to get out of short fields, climb aggressively as needed, and be able to do kind of bush operations. Some people have called it the Sky Jeep for that reason. But the Cruzer is a little more, you might say, sophisticated airplane in the sense of being a cross-country machine that can do a job to get you on a cross-country trip more easily, and it flies somewhat differently as a result. For example, when you're coming in on a landing on the Cruzer compared to the CH-701 or the 750, the STOL airplanes have a slat that is a fixed feature to the front of the wing that allows more airflow at higher angles. But when you reach those higher angles, the airplane changes its flight characteristics somewhat, and the Cruzer doesn't do that. Because it doesn't have those. It's a conventional wing. It uses the same essential wing but without the slats on it, and that makes the flight characteristics a little bit more modest on approach to landing and so forth. It is a very easy landing machine. In fact, Roger said, I'm going to show you how the airplane lands with virtually no input. And indeed, he had his hand right near the joystick, but I watched him, and the video shows him not using hardly any control input to land the airplane. Now that's a pretty significant thing when the airplane can just bring you back to the field almost on its own. In flight, we were seeing a little higher speeds, as I recall the numbers, about 112 knots. We were seeing at probably the higher power settings, but not max power settings, and that's a pretty good cruise number for this airplane. The CH-701 and 750 series are quite a bit slower, 10 or 15 miles an hour slower, I think. Would be an accurate number. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. But I think that for a lot of people, while the Sky Jeep, the 750 with the bubble doors and everything is very nice and suits a lot of kind of flying, that many people are going to want the Cruzer because it's just going to give you really more of what you want in most situations, and it still takes off and lands in very short distances. So you're not losing a lot when you give up the leading edge slats of the other airplanes. Now, one of the other features that was significant about the airplane is as you can see here, it's got the UL power engine in it. This is the 4-cylinder version producing 130 horsepower. They also have other variations. They have a 6-cylinder engine, produces up to, I believe, 190 horsepower. So this is a company that's come on the scene in the past 4 or 5 years and is advancing quickly into the home built market, which is their only market right now because they are not yet ASTM approved. They are working on it, but it's not completed yet. So at this time, the 750 Cruzer and the UL power engine are experimental amateur built category airplanes. This one is not available as a special light sport aircraft. You do build this from a kit. The kit, I'm told, is about a 750 hour or so, depends on a lot of variables, but about 750 hours to get the airplane completed and nearly ready for flight, we'll call it. There may be some additional details to do before you get everything all done. So here's a company that has been in business close to 25 years. I think it's 23 years is the number. They've been in Mexico, Missouri. In that time, they've put out about 2,500, somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 airplanes. So that's more than 100 airplanes a year on average. That's a number that any company in the light aircraft space would be happy to be able to say was their numbers. And so here's a company that's been very successful. They're coming up here later in this month that we're doing this show at. We're here at the Midwest LSA Expo for this particular flight report. And later this month, they will have their annual fly-in, which they've done every single year they've been in Mexico, Missouri, and they draw 700 or 800 people to that. So this is a thing that's very well attended by the sort of the Zenith faithful, if you will, and I'm sure many people who want to learn more about it. They have classes and talks by people like Dynon and UL Power and other vendors to the company are there, and that you can learn a lot, and there's a lot to learn about the airplane. As a kit, this is what's called a matched hole kit, where all of the wing skins, all the fuselage skins have pilot holes already drilled in them, smaller ones, a pilot hole being a hole that you'll need to enlarge slightly. But you put it together, that way you don't need any special jigging or anything, you don't need any custom built work tables particularly to do this thing, and that's what makes the build process that much easier. And it's also a company that supports a variety of engines. They use Rotax, they use UL Power, they use Jabiru. I think they've had Continental engines in their airplanes, and they support all of those as they do so well with their entire line of aircraft. So a few more facts about the UL Power engine that we flew with on this particular CH-750 Cruzer here at the Midwest LSA Expo. This is an engine that does not run at the same speeds that the Rotax runs at. People have gotten kind of used to the 5,000 numbers that a Rotax operates at. In fact, the UL Power is more like a so-called conventional engine, like Lycoming Continental, which run in the high 2000s or low 2000s, depending on where you're setting. Here we were often, we got into the up to the low 3000s of RPMs when doing the maximum power stuff. A lot of the time we were only at about 2800. And this is a very simple airplane. There is a throttle, and there's throttles on both sides, by the way, which I really like. We'll come back to the controls for a second, but on the engine part, there's a throttle on the outside of the airplane, on the outside of the panel, I should say, on both sides. So that's very easy for both people to operate those. And when you operate this engine, you've got throttle and a key switch, and that's it. And the reason is because this engine is what's called FADEC. FADEC, F-A-D-E-C, is full authority digital engine controls, and basically a computer system is taking care of all the details that you normally have to watch and take care of on the airplane. So very nice, very simple to operate. And I told the importer of the UL Power engine that the best thing I could say about the engine was that I really didn't even think about it or notice it. It ran smoothly, it was powerful, 130 horsepower, and a light aircraft is lots of power, and it was just an easy engine to deal with in every way, and they seem to love it. They've said they've got good experience with it now, really like it. Back inside the airplane, this airplane, and you can have it different ways, so this is just one of the configurations, but it uses what's called they call it a center stick. I'd call it a Y stick. That's because the joystick has a shape like this, and either person can put their hand on it, and for doing some instruction or giving people an idea how the airplane flies, it's very handy because you're not hands on top of one another, and you're not sort of fighting. You're all in the same stick, and you can feel easily what the other person is doing. Not that you have to do a whole lot with a stick in this airplane. In flying the Cruzer, I tended to overuse the rudder a little bit because it doesn't take much. I think you could almost fly the airplane without any rudder. Of course, not in a crosswind condition or something like that, but for the most part, the airplane flies very well with just the joystick, which is a very nice quality. Shows that the configuration of the wing to the tail volumes and so forth must be about in the right range because it kind of wants to fly easily just by joystick motions. And the stick pressures are nice and light. They're not squirrely, they're not too light. There's no difficulty in controlling the airplane. As said, you can land it with your hands off almost, but it takes very light pressures, and you don't have to move the stick very far at all to get the action that you want. That's a nice feature. Both sides have rudder pedals, both sides have toe brakes. It is a steerable nose wheel, but you have toe brakes, so you can really maneuver tightly on the ramp. That's nice. Seat comfort was very good. The seats do adjust fore and aft. There's a lot of baggage area behind you, but one of the things that stood out in my mind is the immense visibility of the airplane. It's got a skylight over the top. It's got big wide windows on it, and you can see out of this airplane very nice. Plus, in the 750, which I also love, especially for its STOL characteristics, looking over the nose, because of the angle of the way the airplane flies, you can't see as well over the nose. In the 750 Cruzer, you can see over the nose easily, so that's a nice additional factor. Everybody loves visibility. This particular airplane does not have the bubble doors on it. You can build it either way, and this is what they built for this airplane as they put this one together, but you can't have the bubble doors that add 4 inches of cabin room to the airplane. So there's a lot of it's a home-built airplane. You're going to do the build work. They got great support, but that means you can configure it pretty much any way you want. So if you want to get an airplane from the Zenith Aircraft Company, you can have what I call the 600 series. That's used to be the 601. That's now the 650. That's a low-wing, all-metal airplane, kind of a cruiser airplane. That was the larger volume of the airplanes they had for a while. Now the high-wing models have kind of taken over, and one of the reasons for that is they're very easy to get in. Open the door, gull wing door, turn around, basically sit on the seat and pull your legs inside. Very, very simple operation that way. So coming in to land in the airplane and up in the air, we saw some interesting things about the STOL characteristics on it. This has the Dynon sky view, the 10-inch, the large one, and doesn't have any round instruments in this particular airplane. They're not really needed. You've got everything you need in the Dynon. But one thing about those is when the airspeed gets all the way down low, it just kind of goes away. So when I say the airspeed disappeared, it doesn't mean the instrument failed to work. It just meant that it got so slow that the number isn't relevant anymore and it just doesn't display. The last number I saw coming in for landing at one point was 18 miles an hour. So this airplane, even though it's not a STOL, slows down very, very well. Now keep in mind, folks, that 18-mile-an-hour number is probably not an accurate figure, because when it gets down that low in the angle of the air hitting the pitot tube, it begins to have errors. But the point is, it's very, very slow. We saw that aloft too. I asked Roger to give me a demonstration of it. He handled the flap switch because it's on the left-hand side. After he did it, he ran the flaps. I couldn't reach them from the right side where I flew, but he put down full flaps when he did the STOL. And the STOL characteristics are very benign. It basically just kind of bobs around a little bit, and then you just start flying again. Even if you hold the stick back, the airplane just wants to fly. So very good for a more novice pilot or one that's still acquiring his experience and skills. It's an easy airplane to operate that way, but the STOL is still very slow. You're not losing much of the low end by giving up that leading edge slat and the STOL characteristics of the airplane. So I hope we've given you plenty of information here about the 750 Cruzer, the speedier high wing airplane from the Zenith company. You need to look at all of their stuff, and they've got a great website with a lot of information, a lot of videos and other things, and lots of help for builders and so forth that you may want to look at. You can find all that on zenithair.com. For information about Zenith and lots of other airplanes, you can find more information on bydanjohnson.com. That's bydanjohnson.com. Thanks a lot for coming along with us in the 750 Cruzer here at the Midwest LSA Expo. Tweaking the elevator trim. He got the flaps down. He's got his hand on the throttle. Not much though. Not much going on. We're sort of on natural autopilot, we'll call it. There's not an autopilot doing this. This is the airplane flying
landing on our left base, runway 23, full stop, number.
Hardly any control input, so that forecast was pretty accurate.
A little bit more trim.
Going to make some pilots feel bad though, because if it's a bad landing, it's probably bad.
100 in traffic. Typical 447 X-ray Sierra entering left downwind runway 23 will be number 3 to land.
38, 33, 32. Touchdown coming up here. Oh, airspeed went away. Last time I saw it was about 22. That was beautiful. Nicely done. I guess I have to give you credit. Do a whole lot, but you got it set up just right, and that's of course the whole thing.